Run, river, run, run through the hills. Run, river, run to the sea. Run, river, run to your place beneath the sun. Run, river, run over me.
Hi, this is Jan Lewis. Welcome to Be My Guest. We have Deborah Kaiman, Tillinghast, back on. She was with us, she's saying, welcome, Deborah.
Thank you.
She was with us in 2015, and that was back when we moved into this, which has been our permanent studio back then. When we had talked about her book, The Fairy Home. You might remember that, the F-E-R-R-Y, Fairy Home. And now she has a book, A Dream Worth Keeping. And being an enthusiast for Maine, I was born there, this is adorable. This is a book about a woman who got divorced right from her husband. He was a little bit controlling, I would say. Mm-hmm. And she decided to go up to Maine, where her grandmother had a, what do you call it? Not a cupcake factory, but a kind of, what would you call it?
It was a bakery, but actually she started in Maine.
Yeah.
That's where she began her life, in Maine, and she went from there.
Yeah. It was
It's like a bakery cafe.
Yeah, a bakery. And so she stayed there for a while with her grandmother. Right. And then she went back to, was it Virginia? She went back home again?
No, Maine is her home.
Yeah.
Then she went to school in Providence.
Yeah.
Married and went to Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
Got divorced. Went on to Tennessee and Florida, and then came back to Maine.
Where did you get the idea for this?
Well, truthfully, it just came into my head one day. I have a son that lives in Baltimore,
Yeah.
and I was walking home from my granddaughter's nursery school, and Martha joined me. And she started to tell me her story, and I just kept getting more and more bits of the story at different times, different places, and that's how it started.
That's how it started. Were you writing many, many years ago, too? Did you start off after high school, college writing?
I started with The Fairy Home.
That was it?
That was the beginning.
Were you, after college, after high school, did you go to college at all?
I did.
Where'd you go?
I went to UMass in Amherst.
What did you major in?
Foods and nutrition.
Foods and nutrition.
So the book has a lot of food.
That would say it all right there, right? I love the way this begins, that Deborah takes, not Deborah, our
Martha.
Maine, she takes the water taxi over to Fells Point, right, in Maine. And it's called The Roasted Bean. That's cool. Where did you get that? That's adorable. You just came to your mind.
Yes. Yep.
And this was published, I believe, in 21, right? 2021?
It was very end of 2020, like December of 2020.
Yeah. It was the very end.
Yeah.
I'll read just a little bit of this. Is terrific. The most meaningful journeys encompass more than the distance we travel. When Martha files for divorce from her controlling and dismissive husband, Tony, she knows she'll have to begin again. Tony persuaded her to abandon her dreams of chocolate and pastry fame and to break a promise to her grandmother to follow him in his dreams. Now, so obviously, that did not work.
No, it did not.
did that happen in real life in your family or anything?
No, it's all fiction, except obviously I like to cook, so I wove a lot of food in, but the story is fiction.
A Dream Worth Keeping is a story of friendship and loss, guilt and forgiveness. It takes readers on a journey of love and redemption and reminds us that we can't love anyone else until we love ourselves. Oh my God, how important is that? That is, you're seeing that in a lot of the self-help books now. You're spot on. Really spot. How long did it take you to write it?
6 years. Because I would just write in bits and pieces.
Yeah.
And then because I write very randomly, I don't, follow a definite path, then I had to put all the pieces together.
Yeah.
So, and then I, needed to edit it, which I did many times. And so it all takes time.
Where did you find the time? Did you have another job besides writing?
No, I'm retired.
This was it.
So.
It's amazing. And she goes to college and she majors in nutrition, food and nutrition, and then up it pops about the pastry place, the bakery. No wonder. People say, well, that isn't good for you and all that.
Well, you have to have a little bit, right?
Sure. I mean, was it my great grandmother was 96 when she died. And her motto was moderation in all things.
That's
And
right.
her daughter, my grandmother, would say, "Mother, would you like to have some ice cream for dessert?" And just a little. Now, I don't think many of us could go just a little. But she, 96, she did something right.
My mother always had room for dessert.
Yes. And I think, you're going to die, but I think frosting is the best part of any cake or cupcake. I'll take the whole frosting and leave the bread. Are you like that too?
No, actually, I like the cake better than the frosting.
You like it better.
Mhm.
Yeah. Now, you don't have to tell us the ending. Please don't tell me. Give us an idea of what the book is about. Start from the beginning.
The book is about Martha finding her way again. In the course of her divorce, she not only loses her marriage, she loses her dreams, and she loses her belief in herself. And she has to find a new direction, decide where she's going to go. Plus, she's broken a promise to her grandmother, which you find out right at the very beginning. And so she's feeling guilty about that. And she wants to prove herself to herself
Yeah.
and to her grandmother. And along the way, she has friends that help her, and we all need friends.
Right.
And Martha's friends are very important to her. So she follows this path of exploration, trying to figure out what she wants to do, who she wants to be, and to actually believe in herself again.
Love it. Deborah, how can they get a copy of your book, and are you going to be appearing anywhere?
Well, in the spring there will be, I'm sure, events again, but right now you can go on my website, Debbie Kaiman Tillinghast, and it lists the places that they are available. Lightning Ridge Farm in Chepachet. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it at Stillwater Books in Pawtucket. And support a local bookstore. And Barnes & Noble also has it.
Don't forget Tatnock up the street in Westboro. They love authors. I send many of my authors up there. There's a big room for presentations if you'd rather do it that way.
Right.
Or a lot of the ones, you're not just starting out, but some of my new authors they're sitting right closer to like the cash register area where they're noticed a little bit more.
Right.
But if you are going to use the big room, make your own huge signage to make sure that people in there know where to go.
Right.
Because it's in the back.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. It's a very modern store. I mean, it's a woman's dream. You walk in and they also sell customized like soaps and beautiful clothing. There's a cafe. Get through that, and then it opens up to all of the children's books, the adult books, everything. It is amazing. And you can go sit in the back, pull up a little comfy chair, and just kick back. Now, Barnes & Noble has taken those out. Have you ever noticed that?
No,
Oh, yeah,
they
I
don't
used
have
to
their
love-
coffee spots anymore.
Well, yeah, they've got that. It's okay. But it's nothing like those old cushy chairs they used to
Yes.
have.
Yeah.
People would sit there, probably this is the reason they took them away. For hours, the books would be piled up. They didn't buy it. That's the problem. But they'd be like, but that's how I would figure out, okay, of these 5 books, which one or ones do I want to buy?
Right.
They didn't like that, I don't think. Yeah, they want to discourage that.
They
That's
just
a
want
shame.
you to buy them all.
Yeah, I guess so. Now, let's see, have you got something else coming up? You've got a new book?
I'm still writing.
You're
Yes.
still writing. What's the new one like?
Yes. The new one is a series of vignettes about moments that matter in our lives.
Oh, that would be cool.
Things that we sometimes don't notice
Yeah.
unless we take the time to.
That
And
sounds
there are
good.
things that I found have sort of got me over the rough spots.
Right, inspirational.
Yes.
That sounds, when will that be out?
I'm
Oh.
not sure.
A while, right? Maybe summertime?
Maybe, I hope by the end of this year.
Okay, let me know,
Yes.
so we can get you back
Yes.
on again. Do you know the
Yeah.
title yet?
Over the Garden Wall.
Over the Garden Wall. Were you raised in Maine, or did you go there for summers?
I have friends that live in Maine, and I visited them, and my family used to vacation in Maine, and I love Maine.
Yeah.
It's right underneath Prudence Island, and my favorite places.
Prince Edward Island?
Prudence Island.
Oh, what's that?
That's where
That's the one, that's it?
That's the one that Ferry Home was about in
Oh.
Rhode Island, and it's where I grew up. So I love being near the water.
Yeah.
I love being on an island.
Yeah.
And
Did,
Maine
they still
has
have, they have
many.
a ferry from there too, as well as, I know in the book, but did you have to take a ferry to get to where you
Yes,
lived?
I did. Thus the title. That's the only way we could get back
That
and
was
forth.
it.
Was the
Even
ferry.
if you had to go to the doctor or the hospital, you had to go, how long is the ferry ride?
About a half hour.
Well, if you've got a stomach ache and you want to go to the emergency room, that half hour is going to seem like 3 hours.
Yeah, actually, I went in the Coast Guard once when I was a little girl.
The Coast Guard came and got you?
Yes.
By water or by plane?
No, by water.
I wonder if by now they must have a helicopter like UMass has.
I'm sure, and they have emergency, boats that go faster
What
than
about
back
elementary schools? Things like that there? Do they have them still?
then. One-room schoolhouse.
Not anymore though, right?
Yes.
A
yeah.
still a one-room
Still there. One-room school. Yes.
How do you teach kids from 6 to 18?
Well, my mother had kindergarten to the 8th grade. She was the teacher.
Yeah.
And you do a lot of learning on your own. You learn to learn yourself.
I mean,
A lot
it's
of
hard
independent
enough.
learning.
Can you imagine going, I can't imagine going to one room with all these other kids, the upper class, all this, and I'm like 6 years old. First grade was daunting enough. Gee, do you remember did you start with kindergarten and work up?
Yes, I did. Through the 4th grade, and then we moved away.
Okay, so when you left there, where did you go?
Barrington, Rhode Island.
From to Barrington, Rhode Island. That is
Mhm.
beautiful. I looked at apartments down there a long time ago, and they were very interesting.
Pretty town. It's a very pretty
Very
town.
much so. I think
Yeah.
you have, from what I've heard, is it your town, an excellent cable station there? Cable TV. Every town usually
That
has.
I don't know. Yeah.
That is good. Now you said you'd been on the radio recently. Where was that?
It was a local station that we broadcast from Stillwater.
Also-
Stillwater Books.
Oh.
They came there.
They came
and
to Stillwater.
Yes, and
Now I know
broadcast
both
from
Don
there.
and her husband. They've been on the. He's been on the show numerous times through the years. Terrific people, and he is responsible. They both are for having the expo, the Authors Expo in Rhode Island,
That's right. And they published this book.
and they published her book, A Dream Worth Keeping. And it's a novel. And are you going to be donating one to the local authors exhibit downstairs?
I actually already have. I left one on
She
my
did.
way in.
Okay, good. Did you actually see the exhibit? Did you see it where your book is going to be?
No, I didn't have time to explore. I just dropped the book off.
Another great way to get the word out. So many libraries, my God, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Vermont. It depends on how far the author wants to go. Do you have kind of a wide area you'd cover, or do you want to stay more slow?
I'm pretty amenable to
Yeah.
going. Actually, there's an ice cream shop, an Italian ice cream shop called Vaccaro's that's mentioned in the book in Baltimore.
Yeah. Mhm.
And it's a real place, and they have my books.
That's terrific. I always tell authors, if you're basing your book on something, whatever, for gosh sakes, get it to the place where, and
Yes.
it's another great way to get the word. That was
Yeah.
terrific. Is it selling pretty well?
Yes. Yeah.
See, in Baltimore,
Yeah.
Maryland.
Well, a big part of the story takes place in
Yeah,
Baltimore.
yeah. And but how about Maine, though?
Yes, I'm working on that in the summer when I.
Good, that's good.
Yeah.
Now, again, Deborah Kaiman Tillinghast is the author of A Dream Worth Keeping. And Deborah, again, how can they get your book?
You can go on my website, Debbie Kaiman Tillinghast. You can buy it locally at Lightning Ridge Farm in Chepachet or Stillwater Books in Pawtucket. Amazon has it, Barnes & Noble.
Do you prefer to be called Debbie or Deborah?
Debbie.
Okay, Debbie. We will make sure that goes on the credits going up. I wasn't quite sure. Now, The Fairy Home, that was one of the first books that you wrote.
It was the first book.
Remind us again what that was about.
It's about growing up on an island, which is where I spent
That's
my
what you did.
childhood.
That's
Yes,
what you did.
going to a one-room schoolhouse, having your mother as a teacher, and just the rhythm and flow of life
Yeah.
on an island, which is different.
Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to think if I know my ancestors on my mother's side. I'm pretty sure, we were talking earlier, they went to Staten Island. No, wait a minute, wasn't Staten Island Harlem? When Harlem back in the day was a really beautiful place to live, as I know. But I think that's where they were. Or something about Staten Island. why it sticks in my mind. But a lot of people were. Now, Debbie, your name Kaiman, was that your maiden name?
Yes.
It is beautiful.
Yes.
Tillinghast became beautiful names. So they are German?
Tillinghast, yeah.
We were sharing, I have the German on my mother's side too. And they Anglo-Saxed a perfectly beautiful name, and then they just, like so many people did back then, they Anglicized it. You know the announcer on the radio, Jerry Williams? It wasn't Williams. He had Anglicized it. Why? I don't know. In this day and age, it would have been probably a lot more accepted, that type of.
Right.
I don't know why. Now, she says that she has another one coming up. Maybe by the end of the year. So.
I'm also hoping to do a cookie book.
A cookie book? A
Yes.
cooking one?
The very first book I did just for my family
Yeah.
was a book on Christmas cookies, because that's a family tradition. And people have asked me to
Yeah.
make a book out of it, so I'm
That's
thinking
awesome.
of doing that too.
Actually, you know what? I would think that would go along great as an adjunct to this book.
And the Fairy Home, because that's where
Definitely.
it started.
So if you go to give presentations, you could have the cookie book out there too. Have you been to senior? A lot of authors said to me, "Why are you sending me to a senior center?" I said, "Because they read and they have grandchildren."
That's
Have you
true.
been, yes, and have you been going to any of those?
Well, a lot of the sort of in-person things were cut way back because of COVID, so
Sure.
we're just kind of trying to build up again to get back into doing
What
in-person
was the radio
things.
station you were on?
One in Newport, that I think it's WADK.
WADK?
I think so.
Oh, I think they're in cahoots with our Worcester WCRN. Frankie Boyer. Have you ever heard of her? She's okay. She mentions all the call letters, and I think WADK, is one of the ones that gets her shows. That's why it just sticks in my mind.
Right.
Now, where have you spoken in the past?
I spoke at Stillwater. I've done 2 of the local libraries. And most of the things I've done in the past year were outside events.
Yeah, the outside ones.
Like
Well, you got the
farm,
summer coming up.
Right. Farmers markets,
Yeah.
craft fairs, that kind of thing.
Yeah, a lot of the new authors will say to me, what do you mean arts and crafts fairs or farmers markets? I said, think about it. Arts and crafts fairs. Okay, you're the only author maybe sitting there.
Mhm.
What do you think? Isn't that pretty cool? Then they've got it. Farmers market, but that's food. I'm like, yeah, but it's the same thing.
Right.
You are selling your book. You're going to probably be the only or maybe 1 or 2 authors sitting there.
And usually farmers markets have local crafters also.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so they actually welcome authors usually.
I was online doing my research, and there are fairs coming up. Though the ones they're listing that I saw go as far as March or April. They're not planning yet. I don't know why, but anyhow, maybe the Castleberry. Have you heard of them? The Castleberry Fairs.
No.
They usually are all over New England, and they really are. Some of the people say, "Well, I can't afford to," even if they're a great author like Debbie is, "I can't afford to get a table." And I said, "Well, look, pair up with someone.
Yes, sometimes you can do that. I have done it in the past.
It makes
Yeah.
sense.
Share a table.
Try to pair up with somebody who isn't in the same genre that you're writing,
Right.
because that's crazy. But with her beautiful novel, next to maybe somebody just totally different. Maybe it's a crafter. The idea is to get out there.
Right.
Some of these tables are not cheap. They're $60 to $80. Cut it in half. And there's another benefit, to having someone with you. So if you've got to go to the John, and you're at a big festival, you got to go and you're alone, who the heck is going to watch your table?
It's nice to have company.
Yeah, so you can each take turns. And the one that we were just talking about, it used to be, well, it is still in Cranston, isn't it? Or where is the new one for the expo?
It was in Warwick this year.
It's in Warwick this year, okay. It was a huge, huge building, and we've talked about it before. And Debbie was saying the same thing. Absolutely overwhelming. A good overwhelming.
Right. Lots of authors of
Yeah.
every genre, so everybody can find something to.
And now it has moved to Warwick. It used to be in Roads on the Pawtucket in Cranston. What's the name of the building it's in now?
Well, this last year, it was in the Crown Plaza, and I'm not sure yet where it's going to be for the next year.
Yeah. They're coming up, they're coming back, a lot of the fairs and this type of thing. So
Yeah.
if you want to get into it, it's a good idea to hop on now because, you don't want to say, oh, sorry, we're filled up, because there's a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of authors and artists out there.
Right, and people are buying books.
Yes, they are. I've got a friend who loves that doggone, what's it, a Kindle gizmo?
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not the same.
I
As
like to
holding
read
it,
a book,
smelling it,
too.
having a brand new book. This is sensual. This is what it's. Oh no! I'm like, don't you get tired of that? No. Just keeps going with it. I don't get it. I can see from my emails.
Right.
If you and I are going, sure, email.
Yeah.
But to read,
No, I'd rather read a book, too.
yeah, I would too. And definitely the bookstores. A lot of them have reopened. The ones that were closed. And they're also, do you ever see they're often cafes at the same time?
Yes. Yeah, so you can have a cup of coffee, read your book.
Exactly, and then they let you give presentations. That's cool. Very, very good. But the senior centers, there are so many in New England. And they love to have UCOM and this type of thing. Even if they're children's books, right? I
Sure.
think they have children and grandchildren.
Right. Yep.
And very often the library here will donate some books and bring it to our senior center. But think of having an author come. That's terrific. And you could buy the book too. Debbie, how again can they reach you?
You can go on my website, Debbie Kaiman Tillinghast, and it lists all the places that the book is available. It's on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and locally you can get it at Lightning Ridge Farm in Chepachet and Stillwater Books in Pawtucket.
You contributed, was it a poem, to the book Under the 13th Star?
Yes.
When was that?
We've had 6 anthologies. I think Under the 13th Star was maybe the 2nd or 3rd. So there's that particular poem was about Rhode Island food. All the things that are just in Rhode Island.
And it was a poem.
Mm-hmm.
Are you into poetry?
I
Always?
like to write poetry. Lots of times I sit down to write and things come out in poetry even though I didn't intend for them to.
When you were in high school, English class, did the teacher know you were talented as a writer?
No, I don't think I was.
Even with essays, teachers know sometimes. They didn't pick up on it.
No.
In college, did they pick up on it? You could open up your own food store, for heaven's sake. Have you ever thought of it?
Yes, it's one of those things that, one of the things you dream about. But
Yeah, a bookstore, food store. What better way to have customers come in? You've got your books up there. They can come in, have coffee, a nice cupcake.
Cookies.
Cookies. So you do actively cook at home, too?
I like to cook,
You
yes.
like
I
to
especially like to bake.
Well, I gotta hire this girl to come and cook for me. I don't know. When I was growing up, my mother used to kind of shush me out of the kitchen. She said, just enjoy being a kid. But I caught on as to how she baked a chicken, how she fried a hamburger, that type of thing. I'm just not much of a cook. The kind of family where they live to eat. Well, we just ate to live.
My mom liked to bake, and I always helped her, and she was a good teacher.
Yeah, and then she taught all those grades in that small class. How can you teach kids from 6 up to 18? You got to go.
Well, they were through 8th grade, so
Yeah.
she would give us our assignments for the week. Every Monday, every child got their assignments, and while she was helping somebody else, you worked on your own assignments at your own pace, whatever you wanted to do at the moment.
Do you recommend it? Do you think that's a great idea?
Well, I think I learned a lot.
You liked it that way.
I did like it that way. I liked being able to do math when I wanted to do math for as long as I wanted to do it. And then if you got all your assignments done before Friday afternoon, you'd got free time to read a book or
Free weekend.
draw a picture or whatever
Yeah.
you wanted to do.
I'm trying to think if, so you left in the 8th grade, so that now leaves 9th through 12th. Where did you go for that?
Well, I was already in Barrington then.
Okay, you were already in Barrington.
Yes.
You must
Yeah.
have felt the difference big time.
Big difference, yes.
How many kids were in your room? 30?
25, probably 25 or 30.
And then when you went
Much
to-
more regimented
Regimen.
than what I was used to.
Yeah, Barrington High School?
Well, I started in 5th grade when we moved.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Did you have siblings who went through it too?
A sister,
A sister. Are you the baby?
yes.
Aw. Yeah, I know. They say, did you ever read Kevin Lehman's book? He analyzes the
Birth
the birth
order.
order factor. Did you ever read it?
I have read things about it, but I haven't
It
read
is
that particular
fantastic.
one.
He was a baby. Okay, he was the youngest. Then there's the middle. Then there's the oldest, and then there's an only child. And he describes the personality aspects of each child.
Right.
And I was the youngest of two onlys. Interesting. I mean, he was out in school and got married. I was still growing up. So that's
Right.
kind of two only children.
Right.
But with the youngest, it's fascinating. It really is. I think my father was the oldest, my mother was an only. That's interesting because they could be very strong-minded. Only kids sometimes do very well
Yes.
out in the world because
Yeah.
they've been surrounded by adults and they haven't had to be in competition with a sibling or anything like that. They just live their life.
Right.
Did you like being the youngest or would you have rather been the oldest?
I don't think that growing up, I don't think I really
You
thought
didn't
about it.
No.
We were 2.5 years apart, so it wasn't,
Oh, that's great.
not
Yeah.
like we were far apart.
Oh, right. Did your mom know? Did she know you were writing? Did she know?
I wasn't, when she was alive, I wasn't writing.
You weren't yet.
Part of the impetus to write was after she died.
Yeah.
I wanted to share my Prudence Island memories with my family.
Yeah.
And that's really what got me started writing.
No wonder wouldn't she love this now?
She would.
We have to end. But one more time, Debbie, how can they get a hold of you and your book?
You can go on my website, DebbieKaiman.Tillinghast.com, or you can go to local bookstores, Stillwater in Pawtucket, Lightning Ridge Farm in Chepachet, Amazon has it, and Barnes & Noble has it.
And maybe Tatnuk will get it one of these days. That would
Yes.
be really, really cool. And there'll be a copy. There's already a copy down in our Upton Library dedicated authors wall. Before we close, did you do the artwork on this?
I didn't. The graphic designer at Stillwater did it. And
Did
we
it?
I described my inspiration,
Yeah.
and that was her interpretation, which I love. I think she did a beautiful job.
Yeah, I see an awful lot of great covers coming from Stillwater. There's a plug for you guys. Wonderful. Just looking at this, you're like, and it's peaceful. That's what you wanted to get
Yes.
across.
Yeah.
Thank you, Debbie, being with us, and let me know when the next one comes out, okay?
Thank you. Thank you for
Sounds
having
good.
me.
All righty. We'll see you next time and be my guest.
Riding on a shooting star, heading out toward a dream. Tomorrow's even closer than it seems.